Physical appearance, research consistently shows, is a far weaker predictor of perceived attractiveness over time than most people assume. What predicts it more reliably is something behavioral, not physical, and it's been studied extensively in social psychology research on interpersonal attraction. Psychologist Arthur Aron, whose research on closeness and attraction is some of the most cited in the field, found that specific behavioral patterns, not appearance, were the strongest predictors of how attracted people felt towards someone, both in initial encounters and over sustained relationships. Today, I'm breaking down 5 research-backed behavioral patterns that consistently increase perceived attractiveness, none of which involve changing how you look. 5 behavioral patterns, each grounded in social psychology research on interpersonal attraction. By the end of this video, you'll understand what actually drives attraction at a behavioral level, and you'll have specific practices you can start using immediately. Let's go. Most people, in conversation, are mentally preparing their next response, rather than fully absorbing what the other person is saying. Arthur Aron's research on closeness, particularly his well-known 36-question study, found that the depth and specificity of questions asked directly predicted increased feelings of closeness and attraction between participants, more than shared interests or physical proximity. The mechanism appears to be that specific, curious questions signal genuine attention, which research on social bonding consistently identifies as one of the strongest drivers of perceived connection. The practical version of this is simple. Ask one specific follow-up question, rather than a generic one, the next time someone shares something with you. Pattern 2. Comfortable stillness, not constant performance. Most people, especially in early interactions, feel pressure to fill every silence and constantly perform engagement. Research on nonverbal communication and perceived confidence found that comfortable silence, the ability to sit in a pause without anxiously filling it, is consistently associated with higher perceived confidence and social status, which research separately links to increased attraction. Constant talking, by contrast, is frequently associated with anxiety in observer perception, even when that's not the speaker's intention. The practical shift is allowing natural pauses in conversation to exist without rushing to fill them with unnecessary words. Pattern 3. Expressing genuine enthusiasm without restraint. Most people moderate their enthusiasm, worried that visible excitement about something will seem uncool or excessive. Research on emotional expressiveness and likability found the opposite pattern. Genuine, unrestrained enthusiasm about topics someone is actually passionate about is consistently rated as more attractive than restrained, guarded engagement. Likely because authentic enthusiasm signals genuine emotional availability, which research on attraction repeatedly identifies as a core driver of perceived connection. This doesn't mean performing excitement. It means not suppressing genuine enthusiasm when it naturally arises. Pattern 4. Consistency between words and actions over time. Most people focus heavily on what they say in early interactions, underweighting how much behavioral consistency matters over time. Research on trust formation, relevant to long-term attraction specifically, found that perceived trustworthiness, built through consistency between stated intentions and actual follow-through, is one of the strongest predictors of sustained attraction, outweighing initial impression factors significantly as a relationship continues. Initial charm fades in predictive power. Demonstrated consistency increases in predictive power over time. The practical application is straightforward. Follow through specifically on small things you say you'll do, since these accumulate into the trust that sustains attraction beyond initial impressions. Pattern 5. Validating without flattering. Most people confuse genuine validation with flattery, and lean toward flattery because it feels lower risk. Research distinguishes these clearly. Flattery is generic praise, often regarding appearance or surface traits, and research on perceived sincerity shows it's frequently discounted by the recipient, particularly from someone whose interest is apparent. Genuine validation, specifically acknowledging something real about a person's character, effort, or perspective, is processed very differently, and research on perceived authenticity found it produces significantly stronger positive response because it requires actual attention to produce, rather than being generically applicable to anyone. The practical shift is noticing something specific and true, rather than reaching for a generic compliment. None of these 5 patterns involve changing your appearance. All 5 are behavioral, learnable, and grounded in decades of research on what actually drives interpersonal attraction over time. Don't try to apply all 5 today. Pick one. Maybe it's asking one genuinely specific question in your next conversation, instead of a generic one. Maybe it's allowing a natural silence to exist without rushing to fill it. Maybe it's noticing one specific true thing about someone instead of reaching for generic flattery. Pick one. Practice it this week. Notice how the response differs from what you expected. If this was useful, subscribe. Every week I break down what the research actually says about connection and attraction. Drop a comment below. Which pattern are you trying first?